morning, my beautiful friends. Let's discuss the couple of panels, and one of them would be the onion heartburn. Ha ha ha! Gives you heartburn. Ha! Just teasing. But anyway, the questions I've posed for you is that I'm telling you that you've got a B positive patient, and I've asked you to solve an antibody panel where you're going to look at it and say, okay, what's the antibody or antibodies that are present? What further steps would I need to do in solving this particular problem, and what kind of blood should I give for this particular patient? Well, if we look at onion heartburn's panel, what we're going to notice on there is if we look at 37 degrees, everything is negative. Okay, we can't do anything with that. Ooh, we look at the IgG column with lists. Gosh, everything is positive. Ew, that tells me it could be, and it's the same specificity. That could tell me one of two things. Is this some kind of warm auto kind of an issue that's masking everything, or is this a high incidence antibody? Ooh, let's take a little look further. Well, we go ahead and we run a Fison panel. Well, Fison still gives us the results of everything's positive with the same specificity at IgG. So that didn't really tell us anything further, nor did but it does let us know that we don't have an M, an S, a Defi A, or a Defi B, or an N. So we at least do know that. And then we go along a little further and we do a DTT panel. Oh my goodness, it has eradicated whatever antibody we had present. Well, we know that DTT can get rid of Kel, and it can also get rid of Solano. So let's take a look a little further at this particular worksheet, and what we're finding is that we did indeed do a direct Coombs, and our direct Coombs gave us kind of a weak positive kind of reaction with polyspecific, but when we did the more definitive IgG, it was negative. That alone will let us know that this is not an autoantibody issue. Then we've done some further antigen typing. And on the antigen typing, I'm looking and I'm saying, ooh, wow. If I look at the Solano column, ooh, this person is antigen negative for Solano. I wonder if that could be it. Well, let's look a little further, and let's take a look at some of the other columns that can also give us a lot of high incidence antigens. If we were, for instance, to look at Lutheran B, that also gives us a lot. But Lutheran B is not destroyed by DTT, so that helps us to point back to Solano. We could look potentially at JSB. That could be a possibility, so we could certainly run special cells for that. But if we look on our antigen typing, our patient is JSB positive. Oh, so once again, that points us in the direction of Solano. So pretty much we're at a point where we've decided, and if we also look at KPB is positive with all cells tested, but once again, guess what? It is negative. It is positive for the patient. Our patient has a positive antigen typing for that, so that also eradicates the possibility of KPB. So we're pretty much left with our patient being a Solano. So anyway, I wanted just to go over that briefly for you and help you out with that one. The next patient I wanted to take a look at is Katnis Eberdeen, and I've written on the top of that, may the odds be ever in your favor. Well, remember this patient is an A positive. I've told you that she is a big R1, little r prime. And so I've asked you what her antigen type is with that. Well, we know if we've got a big R, then that means they've got the D antigen. And we know if it's a 1, that's got capital C and little e. For the little r prime, we know that that's a little d, a big C, and a little e. So that will tell you what her antigen typing is. Now, we also go a little further, and we notice that I've asked you to look at what kind of potential antibodies does this person have, what further testing might I endure, and what blood type can I give this particular patient. Well, if I look at, first of all, my 37-degree reactions, I'm going to have to go through under lists and go through that and problem solve that. When I go through this line by line, what I end up is, for line 1, I'm going to keep big E, little c, F, V, K, KPA, JSA, Duffy B, JKA, Lewis A, N, and Lutheran A. For line number 2, I'm going to keep big E, little c, F, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, JKA, N, and Lewis A. I was able to get rid of Defi B, and I was able to get rid of Lewis A. On line number 4, I'm going to keep E, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, JKA, N, and Lewis A. I was able to get rid of little c and F. On line number 5, I'm going to keep E, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, N, and Lewis A. I was able to get rid of Kid A. On line number 7, I'm going to keep E, V, KPA, JSA, N, and Lutheran A. I was able to get rid of Kel. On line number 8, I'm going to keep E, V, KPA, JSA, and Lutheran A. I was able to get rid of N. On line number 9, I'm going to keep E, V, KPA, JSA, and Lutheran A, and I can't get rid of any of them. Line number 10, do. Line number 11, I'm left with E, V, KPA, JSA, and Lutheran A. So then I go back and I take a look at all the patterns. What I've noticed is that V, KPA, and JSA are negative with everything. So I can rule those out. And so what I'm left with, and likewise Lutheran A. So what I'm left with is E. I look at the pattern for 37, and guess what? It fits E pretty masterfully. Alright, so now let's go ahead and let's look over at the IgG column. I see that cell number 3 and number 6 is enhanced, so those could be the E showing up, or it could be part of the other reactions for whatever other antibodies present. Once again, I'm going to go through and I'm going to eradicate. So I look at the IgG list, and on line number 1, I'm left with E, little c, F, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, Defi B, JKA, Lewis A, N, and Lutheran A. I go to line number 2. I have big E, little c, F, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, JKA, N, and Lutheran A. I can cross out Defi B and Lewis A. On line number 4, I have E, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, JKA, N, and Lutheran A, and I was able to cross out little c. On line number 5, I have E, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, N, and Lutheran A. I was able to cross out JKA. On line number 9, I have E, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, N, and Lutheran A. I was not able to cross out anything from line number 5. On line number 10, on line number 9 I was not. On line number 10, I have E, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, N, and Lutheran A. And that's what I'm pretty much left with. Well, I look and I can rule out V, KPA, JSA, Lutheran A, strictly because they all have negative reactions. E works still in there, and likewise K works, so I have pretty much a perfect pattern for those two. I do look and see if, because I know N's kind of hanging out there, so I may run and look at real closely at the N pattern, and what I notice is that N is positive for cell number 3, and so is the patient. N is positive for number 5, but the patient is negative. N is positive number 7, the patient is positive. N is positive for number 8, and the patient is positive. But N is positive for number 10, and the patient is negative. So I've got 2 strikes against N, and then also remember, N is going to show up at 37 degrees, and it's not showing up there. So that lets me know that N is most likely there. Now, certainly someone could have, if they wanted to be a little more conservative, could take approach, and they could run E positive, Cal negative, N negative units. Special typing, E negative, Cal negative, N positive, and likewise E negative, Cal positive, N negative cells. Honestly, I'm extraordinarily comfortable with the fact that N should show up at 37, so I don't know that you would necessarily need those special cells. Alright, then I look at doing the Fison test. And in the Fison, what I'm even noticing a little bit more is that the E is being enhanced a little bit. We're seeing some reactions, and likewise, the E is showing up at the Fison 37 degree, which it can notoriously do that. I look at so I see the E in the Kel with the Fison. Nothing has gone away. Then I go to DTT, and I notice that the Kel has been eradicated, and what I'm left with is an E. So therefore, I do patient typing as further testing on my patient. I make sure that they are E negative, and remember, we found out that our patient was an R1, R prime, and so we know that they are E negative. And I would also do Cal testing on my patient as well, and I would make sure that my patient got ABO, RH compatible, E negative, Cal negative units. My patient is an A positive, so therefore they could get A positive, A negative, O positive, or O negative, E negative, Cal negative blood. So hopefully that will help to conclude this one for you. Alright, the next one in line with this particular series is Lourdes Juna. And Lourdes is an AB negative person, and I'm telling you that she's a little R prime, prime. And I've asked you to fill in her antigen typing. Well, we know that she's got a little D, a big C, and she's got a little E, and then she's got a little D, a little C, and a big E. So that kind of lets you know what's going on with her. I also ask you what particular antibodies are involved with our panel and what further steps would I take. And then I ask you what kind of blood type would I give this individual. I take a look at my 37-degree column, and on my 37-degree problem, as I work through this, what I find out is that on line number 1, I'm left with an E, a little C, an F, a V, a Kel, a KPA, a JSA, a Duffy B, a JKA, a Lewis A, a Lewis B, a big S, a P, and a Lutheran A. If I look at line number 2, I was able to rule out big E and little C. I'm sorry, I keep big E and little C, and I have F, V, Kel, KPA, JSA, Duffy B, JKA, Lewis A, Lewis B, and Lutheran A. On line number 3, I was able to rule out big E, little C. I kept F, I kept V, I kept Kel, I kept KPA, I kept JSA, I ruled out Duffy B, I kept JKA, I kept Lewis A, and I kept Lutheran A. On line number 4, I was able to rule out F, I kept V, Kel, KPA, JSA, JKA, Lewis A, and Lutheran A. On line number 5, I kept V, Kel, KPA, JSA, JKA, and Lewis A, and I was able to rule out Lutheran A. On line number 7, I kept V, I was able to rule out Kel, I kept KPA, JSA, JKA, and Lewis A. On line number 8, it's a ditto as line number 7, likewise with line number 10, and then when I get to line number 11, I'm able to rule out JSA and JKA, and I kept V, KPA, and Lewis A. I'm going to rule out V and KPA based upon the fact that they're all negatives, and so therefore I have a Lewis A. Then and that's pretty much truly what I have. I would give the patient, since the patient is AB negative, I can give them A negative, O negative, B negative, or ABA negative, Lewis A negative blood. So that would be the way we would problem solve for this one. Thanks a lot, y'all. Have a great day.